It has become a popular tourist destination for those visiting Highland Park. Everyone needs a picture in front of the gate of the Michael Jordan house. Maggie Antolon is taking one for her father.
Oh, the reason why me and my dad have all these amazing memories is he's the #1 Michael Jordan fan.
We've all seen those insane celebrity house tours where everything looks like pure gold and perfect luxury. But what happens when the cameras turn off, the money dries up, and these massive dream homes turn into total multi-million-dollar ghost towns? We're talking about mega mansions that are so customized, so cursed, or so legally radioactive that literally no one will buy them, not even for $1. Welcome to the dark side of Hollywood real estate. Michael Jordan's Highland Park estate. Let's kick this off with the ultimate boss of unsellable real estate. Michael Jordan's legendary compound out in Highland Park, Illinois. When you are the greatest basketball player of all time, you don't just buy a house. You build a monument to your own greatness. Jordan started constructing this massive 56,000 square foot mega mansion back in the 90s at the absolute peak of his Chicago Bulls dynasty. He poured an estimated $26 million into creating a hyper-customized sanctuary tailored specifically to his lifestyle. And for a long time, it was the crown jewel of celebrity homes. But when he finally decided to put it on the market in 2012 with a jaw-dropping price tag of $29 million, the ultimate real estate nightmare began. Year after year, the property just sat there. It became a permanent fixture on listing sites, a ghost town covered in pristine manicured lawns. The biggest issue with this place? It is too Michael Jordan. The moment you pull up to the property, you are stared down by a massive custom iron front gate with a giant number 23 welded right into the center. Unless your name is LeBron James, or you are a dangerously obsessed billionaire fanboy who wants to live behind someone else's jersey number. Inside, the customization only gets crazier. The centerpiece of the entire estate is a full-size, regulation NBA basketball court. Completely custom-built with cushioned hardwood flooring, high-intensity lighting, and the Jumpman logo blasted right at center court. It's cool for a video shoot, but for a practical buyer, it's a massive waste of square footage. Then you have the specialized cigar room with a custom-engineered air filtration system, a poker room, a full fitness center, and a golf putting green. Every single corner of this house screams, "MJ lives here," which completely breaks the #1 rule of luxury real estate: leave room for the buyer's imagination. On top of that, the location is a massive hurdle. Highland Park is a beautiful, wealthy suburb, but it's not Aspen, Beverly Hills, or Miami. Ultra-wealthy buyers looking to drop $30 million want ocean views or mountain retreats, not a secluded fortress in a quiet Chicago suburb where winters are brutal. Because it sat empty for over a decade, Jordan was bleeding cash just to keep the lights on. We are talking about an estimated $100,000 a year just in property taxes, plus a small army of staff required to maintain the indoor pool, the massive lawns, and the heating bills. Eventually, the price was slashed over and over until it finally sold at a staggering 67% discount for around $9.5 million. A brutal reminder that even a billionaire GOAT can get absolutely wrecked by the housing market. Is it wilder to lose millions on a mansion because of a jersey number? Or because you literally ripped the walls out yourself? Kanye West's Malibu skeleton. All right, if you thought MJ's house was a trip, wait until you hear about what Kanye West did in Malibu. This is hands down one of the most chaotic flexes and massive fails in the entire history of real estate. Back in 2021, Kanye dropped a mind-blowing $57.3 million on a beachfront property. But this wasn't just any beach house. It was an architectural masterpiece designed by Tadao Ando, a legendary Japanese architect. Ando is famous for his minimalist, smooth-as-silk concrete structures. There are only a handful of his homes in the entire United States, meaning this place was supposed to be an absolute trophy asset. But instead of moving in and enjoying the ocean breeze, Kanye decided to do what Kanye does best. He completely tore it apart. The rapper ended up launching a massive, unhinged renovation project with a very specific post-apocalyptic vision. He reportedly wanted to turn the multi-million-dollar masterpiece into a brutalist, off-grid bomb shelter and personal art piece. To do that, he literally gutted the entire interior. He ripped out the custom windows, took down the doors, tore out the high-end finishes, and completely disconnected the electricity, plumbing, and HVAC systems. He essentially took a masterpiece and reduced it to a raw concrete cage. But then, as his personal and financial life hit a chaotic spiral, the project ground to an absolute halt. Kanye just walked away. He left this empty, skeletal concrete frame completely exposed to the harsh, salty Pacific Ocean air, which is basically the worst thing you can do to an unfinished building. Salt water and raw concrete do not mix well over time. Realizing he was stuck with an unlivable bunker, Kanye tried to dump it in early 2024 for $53 million, even hiring celebrity broker Jason Oppenheim from Selling Sunset to hype it up. Unsurprisingly, no billionaire wanted to spend $50 million on a house that didn't even have toilets or glass to keep the wind out. He eventually had to take a devastating $36 million loss, selling the structural shell to a crowdfunding investment firm for just $21 million. The firm tried to fix and flip it, but the property became a total black hole. Ambitious multi-million-dollar deals to resell the house fell apart, construction paused, and the project devolved into a mess of risky financing, bad faith bankruptcy drama, and lender foreclosures. It stands today as a monument to runaway creative ego, a literal gray skeleton on the beach that proved too radioactive for the ultra-rich to rescue. 50 Cent's Connecticut behemoth. This is the infamous 52-room mega mansion that rapper 50 Cent bought from boxing legend Mike Tyson back in 2003 for about $4.1 million. Now, after buying it, 50 didn't just chill, he poured an extra $6 million into completely tricking the place out, essentially turning a massive piece of suburban real estate into a 51,000 square foot personal entertainment empire. We are talking about an indoor pool, a fully equipped gym, a standard basketball court, a recording studio, a private screening room, and a massive custom-built discotheque called Club TKO that featured actual stripper poles. In 2007, feeling good about his investments, 50 Cent slapped a massive $18.5 million price tag on the compound. He expected a quick, flex-heavy flip. Instead, he ended up getting trapped in a brutal, 12-year real estate nightmare. The core issue that made this place completely unsellable wasn't just the hyper-specific, early 2000 rapper aesthetic. It was the terrifying, wallet-shredding cost of just keeping the lights on. Because the mansion was so absurdly massive, the monthly carrying costs were an absolute joke. 50 Cent was reportedly bleeding up to $70,000 every single month just on basic utility bills, property taxes, and general upkeep. Imagine paying the price of a luxury car every 30 days just to heat rooms you haven't stepped foot in for over a year. On top of that, the house was a total statistical anomaly for its neighborhood. Farmington is an incredibly nice, wealthy town, but it is not a market built for 50,000 square foot compounds. Real estate experts call this an oversized asset, a home so vastly outside the local norm that the pool of actual buyers is basically non-existent. Rich corporate executives or low-profile old-money families don't want to live in a house that looks like a suburban convention center. especially one with a built-in casino room and G-Unit branding. Year after year, the listing sat there, mocking him while bleeding his bank account dry during his high-profile bankruptcy drama. The price was slashed repeatedly, dropping like a stone. Finally, in 2019, after more than a decade of waiting, 50 Cent managed to dump the property for a meager $2.9 million. That is an 84% price cut from his original ask, and significantly less than what he initially paid Tyson, let alone the millions he wasted on renovations. It stands as a wild cautionary tale of what happens when you let your lifestyle completely outgrow the reality of the local real estate market. John Powers Middleton's Hollywood Hills ruins. Now, if you want to talk about a property that completely broke the internet for all the wrong reasons, we have to look at what happened to John Powers Middleton's property in the Hollywood Hills. Middleton is a film producer and the son of the billionaire co-owner of the Philadelphia Phillies, meaning he has access to serious wealth. He bought this prime modern mansion located at 7571 Mulholland Drive back in 2012. Historically, this property was pure Hollywood prestige. In fact, it was so visually stunning and luxurious that rap mogul Sean "Diddy" Combs actually used it as the backdrop to shoot one of his major hit music videos. For years, it stood as a multi-million-dollar symbol of elite success. But somewhere along the line, Middleton completely abandoned the property, leaving it totally unguarded and vacant for nearly a decade. What happened next is a literal horror story for the neighborhood's wealthy elite. Over the last couple of years, local taggers and squatters realized the massive four-story fortress was completely unprotected. They broke in, and word spread fast through the LA underground scene. Practically overnight, the mansion was completely transformed into a lawless multi-million-dollar canvas. Taggers spray-painted every single inch of the property. We are talking about floor-to-ceiling graffiti covering the exterior walls, the interior living spaces, the ceilings, the balconies, the pool, and even a massive "Diddy was here" tag blasted across the rooftop. It literally looks like an apocalyptic, dystopian set from a movie, standing out like a neon thumb against the ultra-manicured, pristine hillsides of Los Angeles. The situation became a massive public safety crisis. Neighbors reported hearing loud parties at all hours, witnessing fires being lit, and some residents were even threatened by aggressive, armed squatters wielding steel rebar. The property value plummeted, and the city of Los Angeles had to step in with emergency abatement orders. The LAPD was getting called to the property dozens of times a year just to clear out burglars and trespassers, only for a new batch of squatters to move right back in an hour later. The city tried putting up a security fence, but it was breached instantly. After massive public outrage and multiple arrests on the property, Middleton finally had to issue a public apology to the citizens of Los Angeles, promising to pay out of pocket for 24/7 armed guards, cleanup crews, and city reimbursements. It is an absolutely mind-blowing example of how a prime piece of $10 million Hollywood real estate can be completely ruined and rendered utterly unsellable, simply because the owner walked away and let the chaos take over. When the spotlight fades and the money dries up, what happens to the empires built on nothing but hype? Nelly's unfinished palace. We are now talking about the early 2000s rap icon Nelly, who dominated the airwaves with tracks like Hot in Harry and Country Grammar. At the absolute height of his fame back in 2002, Nelly dropped roughly $2 million on a massive Tuscan-style palatial estate in Wildwood, Missouri, just outside his hometown of St. Louis. The home was huge, spanning nearly 11,000 square feet, on a massive 12-acre lot right near the Hidden Valley Ski Resort. It had columns, dramatic vaulted ceilings, a huge basketball court, and walls of glass looking out over the Merrimack River Valley. But Nellie didn't buy this place just to flex on MTV Cribs. He actually bought it with the beautiful intention of remodeling it completely to flip it with a contractor friend, and according to local rumors, to gift it to his beloved sister, Jackie Donahue. But then, real life hit hard. In the mid-2000s, Jackie was tragically diagnosed with leukemia. Nellie dropped everything to support her, even launching a massive campaign to find her a bone marrow donor. Sadly, she passed away in 2005. After that devastating loss, the energy surrounding the house completely shifted. The ongoing renovations ground to an absolute immediate halt. Nellie just couldn't bring himself to finish the project or even step foot inside the property anymore. For nearly 2 consecutive decades, this multi-million-dollar mansion sat completely vacant, abandoned, and entirely stuck in a state of mid-renovation limbo. It became a legendary local ghost house, with urban explorers and vloggers frequently sneaking onto the grounds to film the eerie, untouched interior. Inside, the house was a total time capsule of unfinished dreams. You had grand foyers and massive walk-in closets, but they were surrounded by exposed wooden wall studs, bare drywall, half-finished plumbing lines, and missing flooring. Over the years, the elements and complete neglect took a heavy toll, causing the structure to slowly deteriorate while property values in the area soared. Nellie finally decided to cut his losses and move on, listing the crumbling fixer-upper on Zillow for an absolute bargain price of just $599,000. It sold in a short sale, meaning he lost a staggering amount of money compared to his initial multi-million-dollar investment. It stands as a chilling, quiet monument to how fast life can change, showing that sometimes a mansion remains completely unsellable, not because of bad taste, but because it's haunted by the memories of a life that could have been. John Travolta's Main Island Hideaway. Let's fly up to the freezing, rugged coast of New England to look at a property that isn't decaying or covered in graffiti, but is trapped in a completely different kind of real estate purgatory. This is John Travolta's massive oceanfront estate located on the exclusive, ultra-private island of Islesboro, Maine. Travolta and his late wife, Kelly Preston, bought this historical 1903 shingle-style mansion back in 1991, right after they got married. They wanted a sprawling sanctuary away from the absolute madness of Hollywood paparazzi, a place large enough to host their massive extended family for the holidays. So they spent decades transforming what was a dark, gloomy old house into a vibrant, 42-room mega cottage. But when Travolta finally decided to list the home for $5 million, he ran headfirst into a brick wall. The listing sat completely untouched for years, eventually expiring and forcing him to pull it off the market. So why did this gorgeous, oceanfront piece of Hollywood history become an unsellable ghost town? It all comes down to 2 major flaws: accessibility and an incredibly niche, eccentric interior. First, let's talk logistics. Islesboro is a remote island off the coast of Lincolnville, Maine. To get there, you either need a private boat, a water taxi, or you have to coordinate your life around a 20-minute public ferry service that runs only a few times a day. If you are a billionaire tech bro or an A-list actor, the last thing you want to do is wait in a public ferry line just to get home. Plus, keeping a 10,800 square foot historic estate running on a remote island is a financial nightmare. You need a hotel-sized furnace just to keep from freezing during the brutal Maine winters, and importing contractors or materials to an island doubles your maintenance bills instantly. But the real deal breaker is the inside. The home is styled to look like an over-the-top, old-school English manor mixed with a 50s fever dream. The walls are covered in blindingly bright yellow, deep greens, and intense floral wallpapers. The third floor is a massive children's playground that features a literal schoolroom, a library, a built-in theater stage, and deeply specific themed bedrooms like a Peter Pan room and an airplane room. Real estate agents openly admitted that the home looks exactly like a high-end grandma's house. In a luxury market where modern buyers want sleek, clean, minimalist lines and neutral tones, Travolta's mansion is a massive time capsule. Anyone buying it would have to spend millions just to rip out 30 years of deeply personal nostalgia, making this beautiful island hideaway a permanent prisoner of its own eccentric design. A chilling realization that even icons can become prisoners of their own taste. Mary J. Blige's Saddle River Manor. Back in 2008, at the peak of her legendary career, Mary dropped a whopping $12.3 million in cold, hard cash on a newly constructed, massive French country-style manor. Spanning an absolute joke of a footprint, over 18,200 square feet of pure luxury, this place was built to be the ultimate celebrity fortress. It was hidden behind massive cast-iron gates and wrapped in over 4 acres of perfectly manicured, lush greenery. Inside, it had literally every single thing a superstar could ever dream of. 8 massive bedrooms, 13 bathrooms, a private elevator servicing all 3 floors, a 14-seat home cinema, an indoor basketball court, a massive fitness center with its own sauna, and a wine cellar complete with a private tasting room. It looked like the ultimate dream. But when Mary tried to sell it a few years later, the dream turned into a total real estate nightmare. The house ended up languishing on the market for an agonizing, brutal 10 years. Mary tried listing it for $13.9 million, then dropped it to $13 million. But the property just sat there, completely radioactive to buyers. The biggest issue with this place was a lethal combination of terrible timing and massive overhead costs. Because the home was built during the peak of the mid-2000s speculative housing boom, it was vastly overpriced for what the local market could actually sustain after the economy crashed. On top of that, the cost of just keeping this French palace alive was staggering. The yearly property taxes alone were pushing a massive $100,000. And when you add the cost of heating an 18,000-square-foot megastructure through brutal East Coast winters, maintaining a massive outdoor pool, and paying for constant security, the home was bleeding cash like an open wound. To make matters worse, Mary was going through a highly publicized, incredibly messy divorce and facing serious tax drama at the exact same time. She became an incredibly motivated seller, desperately slashing the price over and over again just to get the asset off her books. In 2019, she hacked the price all the way down to $6.8 million, which was basically half of what she originally paid. Finally, in 2020, a buyer stepped up and snagged the estate for a meager $5.5 million. Mary took a devastating, heartbreaking $7 million loss on the property, not even counting the millions she wasted on upkeep and taxes over that decade. It is a wild, eye-opening reminder that in the world of luxury real estate, a massive house can easily turn from an ultimate status symbol into a financial anchor, dragging you straight down. Jim Carrey's Brentwood Sanctuary. This time, let's look at a property that belonged to none other than the comedy king himself, Jim Carrey. Now, Jim lived in this gorgeous 11,000-square-foot Brentwood Ranch-style mansion for nearly 30 years, purchasing it way back in 1994, right as Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, was blowing up. Over 3 decades, Jim turned this massive 2-acre property into a literal place of enchantment and inspiration. It was a sprawling creative sanctuary packed with incredible perks. We are talking about a full-size tennis court, a waterfall swimming pool, a custom pool house with a sauna and steam room, and even an outdoor trail leading to a private treetop yoga and meditation platform. Inside, the house was a total tribute to old Hollywood, complete with a custom, mohair-walled Art Deco movie theater that featured a literal popcorn concession stand and displays of his iconic movie costumes, like his outfit from The Grinch. In early 2023, as Jim started stepping back from the Hollywood limelight and spending more time out at his vacation spot in Maui, he decided to put this massive piece of his history on the market for a staggering $28.9 million. Jim probably figured that a beautiful estate with that much Hollywood history would sell in a heartbeat. Instead, he ended up getting trapped in a grueling 2.5-year real estate saga that featured 4 massive price cuts, a canceled contract, and a terrifying brush with California's extreme environment. The mansion just sat there, radioactive to buyers, as the price was repeatedly slashed over and over again, first to $26.5 million, then down to $23.9 million, and eventually crashing under the $20 million mark. So what was the major roadblock? It turns out Jim's sanctuary ran headfirst into the brutal reality of California's modern climate and insurance crisis. In late 2024, Jim actually managed to get the home under contract with a buyer for around $19.8 million. But right before the deal could close, a massive, terrifying wildfire swept right through the neighboring canyons. While Jim's heavily hedged property luckily avoided a direct hit, the fire came close enough to force mandatory evacuations. Suddenly, the reality of owning a massive luxury estate tucked away in the vulnerable California brush hit the buyer. Real estate insiders noted that banks and luxury homeowners insurance companies completely shied away from committing to the area during the chaotic aftermath of the fire, causing the entire deal to totally fall apart. Jim was forced to drop the price even lower until he finally managed to unload the estate in August 2025 for just $17 million. That is a massive, eye-watering 41% discount from his original asking price, proving that in today's market, not even Hollywood royalty can outrun the terrifying realities of nature and insurance. Pierce Brosnan's Thai-inspired compound. After starring in blockbusters like Die Another Day and The World Is Not Enough, Brosnan and his filmmaker wife, Keely Shea Smith, decided to construct their absolute dream home along the ultra-wealthy shores of Broad Beach in Malibu. It was a massive, decade-long labor of love. They knocked down an existing mid-century ranch house and spent years building a jaw-dropping 12,500-square-foot compound completely inspired by their extensive time spent living in Thailand during his 007 filming days. They lovingly named the property Orchid House. In late 2020, they officially slapped a staggering, mind-blowing $100 million price tag on the estate. Brosnan openly declared that he wouldn't part ways with his masterpiece for a single penny less. But there was a massive problem. The global elite completely left him hanging. Despite sitting on over an acre of prime, highly coveted Malibu sand with 117 feet of direct ocean frontage, the mega mansion completely failed to attract a serious buyer. After a grueling year of absolute silence on the market, Brosnan was forced to quietly pull the active listing entirely. The core issue that locked this property into an unsellable limbo wasn't a lack of luxury. It was the highly distinctive, hyper-specific cultural architecture. The exterior of the home features massive, custom green clay tile roofs shipped directly from Southeast Asia, designed to closely mirror the sacred temples of Thailand. Inside, the home is heavily packed with exotic wide-plank teak wood flooring, scissor truss ceilings, and dense tropical gardens. While the craftsmanship is absolutely world-class, this rigid architectural identity is a double-edged sword. When a buyer is ready to drop a historic $100 million on a house, they usually want a hyper-modern glass fortress or a traditional California coastal aesthetic. They don't want to buy into someone else's deeply personal vacation fantasy. Brosnan's specific Thai layout featured niche amenities like a Japanese-style spa with cold plunge pools, custom-carved teak cabinetry, and open-air wraparound terraces tailored strictly to his lifestyle. Compounded by a sudden influx of competing luxury properties hitting Malibu, the hyper-customized tropical theme became an immediate deal-breaker. It stands today as an incredibly glamorous piece of coast, completely off the market, proving that even a secret agent's ultimate paradise can be completely paralyzed by its own rigid design. A final, sobering look at the cost of building an inescapable personal fantasy in a cold, unforgiving, financial world. Tom Girardi's scandal-plagued Pasadena estate. This one became completely, biologically, and legally radioactive. We are talking about the historic 1928 Mediterranean-style Pasadena estate, owned by disgraced high-profile lawyer Tom Girardi and his pop diva reality star ex-wife, Erika Jayne. If you have ever watched The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, you already know this house. It was a massive character on the show, a 10,000-square-foot baronial symbol of pure, unadulterated old money wealth. It featured a solid bronze front door, a walnut-paneled gallery, a private chapel upstairs, and a master bath wrapped entirely in red silk and custom chinoiserie walls. But in late 2020, the entire empire shattered when it was exposed that Tom had allegedly embezzled millions of dollars meant for plane crash victims to fund their lavish lifestyle. The moment the scandal broke, the mansion was thrown onto the market for a massive $13 million to try and pay back the staggering debts. But it instantly became the ultimate real estate leper. Buyers completely ran away from it, forcing the price to drop like a rock over 9 grueling months, slashing down to $11.5 million, then $9.9 million, then bleeding all the way down to $7.5 million. The roadblock here wasn't just the fact that it sat right next to a super noisy freeway, or that the interior design looked like a dusty Ritz-Carlton parlor from 1980. The real curse was the bankruptcy court. Because it was a contaminated bankruptcy asset, any deal had to be approved by a federal judge, leaving it vulnerable to being overbid by other buyers at the last second. It scared off normal luxury buyers who didn't want to get dragged into a toxic, highly publicized legal circus. Even worse, as it sat empty after Tom was forced into senior living and Erika moved out, the grand estate literally began to fall apart. With zero money left for upkeep, the glamorous paths, fountains, and outdoor chandeliers were left to gather dust. Buyers walked through the property reporting that it needed hundreds of thousands of dollars in hidden, urgent repairs just to make it functional. The home eventually sold at a brutal fire sale loss for around $8 million, nearly half off its original ask. It stands today as the ultimate cautionary tale of the Hollywood elite. It's a stark reminder that the most beautiful, glittering palaces are often built on a foundation of absolute sand. And when the illusion snaps, not even the most glamorous zip code can save you from a total collapse. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another look inside Hollywood's wildest real estate disasters.